and welcome back to another segment of Unleashing the World of Music and Poetry. My name is Tammy Bowers, and I am your host for tonight's show. So we have with us poet and author Richard Lamoureux, who is going to share some of his poems and the stories behind them as well. So to get us started, here is the interview with Richard Lamoureux. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another segment of Unleashing the World of Music and Poetry. We have with us today poet Richard Lamoureux with us, and he's going to share some of his writings with us, and you're going to get to hear some of his favorite poems. So, Richard, thank you, and welcome to the program. I appreciate it so much.
Well, thank you, Tammy. I was really excited to do this interview with you. I had the opportunity to listen to the interview you did with Andrea Dietrich from Poetry Soup. And because you have such a nice, warm and inviting way about you, I thought, why not? I'm a bit of an introvert by nature, so doing public speaking is always created a little bit of anxiety, but here we go.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you so much. So how did you start out writing poetry? What led you, to go down that path in your life?
Yeah, probably it started with actually doing very poorly in school because I failed a couple of grades. I failed grade 3 and I failed grade 6. And then I had a teacher that took an interest in me when I was in grade 6. His name was Mr. Lake. And anyway, he was saying that, you're a smart kid. He says, I don't understand why you're not doing well. So as a result of that, he gave me this task to basically memorize a poem and then recite it in front of the class. And I still remember the poem. It's in grade 6. It was The Destruction of Sennacherib by Lord Byron. And here it is over 50 years later. Here I'm giving away my age. And I still remember that poem as if I had memorized it yesterday. So that was kind of my first taste of any kind of academic success, I guess you would say. So I can thank that teacher for kind of putting me on the right pathway.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think we all have a teacher that's, really touched us in some way. I remember that too. I was in, and I actually, I failed the first grade because I had trouble reading. And then the next year, the teacher I had, she helped me. And I was reading top of my class, after that. And I've always loved books and always loved, literature and poetry and different types of reading. So, it's funny how some people can just open the door and inspire you to do better. And you just need that inspiration and you just need that guidance, at times. So that's a very special story. Thank you for sharing that with us. I appreciate that.
So I have a lot of props out there to teachers. I think teachers are amazing. And really all it takes is one person to take an interest in a child and they can literally change the trajectory of that person's life. So in fact, when I wrote my book, I dedicated a chapter to teachers as well.
Oh, that's beautiful. Oh, that's amazing. That is wonderful. Thank you so much. And yes, teachers are a blessing. They are a blessing to all of us. So let's talk about some of your writings. We'll start with one of my favorites, Cup of Empty. Could you read that one for us and we talk about it just a little bit?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So let me get my glasses here.
Yeah.
Wow, you're even more pretty now with my glasses on.
You, how sweet you are.
Okay, so the poem is called Cup of Empty. And the reason that I wrote it is I grew up in, unfortunately, an abusive family environment where there was a lot of not only physical, emotional abuse, but there was also substance abuse. So it was, so I wrote this piece. Anyway, I'll read it and then you can kind of go from there.
Okay.
So I call it A Cup of Empty. She pours him a cup of empty from a teapot of childhood dreams. He loves the sound of her giggles. Hers is the light of 1,000 moonbeams. Moonbeams and butterflies, petals from roses, counting out loud, crossing fingers and toes. Unicorn and Teddy all enjoying a sip, cups full of empty, never spill and can't drip. He lifts a cup of empty and gives his baby a wink. Dear darling, this is so delicious. It's the best I've ever had to drink. In the evening, he turns to his bottle. With his friends, he goes to the bar. She faithfully waits for hours, thinking, dear daddy, I wonder where you are. Moonbeams and butterflies, petals from roses, counting out loud, crossing fingers and toes. Unicorns and Teddy all enjoying a sip, cups full of empty, never spill and can't drip. She sets their table and faithfully waits, hoping that daddy will be coming home soon. But her tired eyes give way to sleepy as her Teddy watches under the moon. He comes home way after midnight, sees his angel asleep on the floor, smiles and sips a sip of empty and thinks, I shouldn't drink anymore. Years have a way of taking. She doesn't wait for daddy at home. She's found a new kind of pleasure. Her hunger grew from being alone. She fills her veins with her empty, has dreams she can't explain, trades her body for those giggles in hopes of escaping her pain. Moonbeams and butterflies, petals from roses, counting out loud, crossing fingers and toes. Unicorn and Teddy all enjoying a sip, cups full of empty, never spill and can't drip. Daddy sat home and he waited. His baby girl never came home. He still drowns himself in his bottle, but now he drinks all alone. Her teacup sits on the counter, emptied of her childhood dreams. He misses the sound of her giggles and the light of 1,000 moonbeams. He lifts the cup of empty to his lips and takes another drink, empties out the rest of his bottle as his pain is poured down the sink. Moonbeams and butterflies, petals and roses, counting out loud, crossing fingers and toes. Unicorn and Teddy all enjoying a sip, cups full of empty, never spill and can't drip. He traded what was real for his empty as he relinquished her childhood dreams. Now his baby girl has flown to heaven on the light of 1,000 moonbeams. He wishes he could be with his baby, lift her cup and give her a wink, say, this is so delicious. It's the best I've ever had to drink.
Wow. So moving and so true. I mean, how many times have we seen, even I think we all do it, something that we're missing in our life and we feel it with some kind of maybe habit or, whether it might be some form of a good habit or a bad habit. And that's just very powerful, very powerful. So thank you for writing that. And I mean, it inspired me and I read it several times and, a couple of the things that pointed out to me was, the verse that says years have a way of talking. She doesn't wait for daddy at home. She's found a new kind of pleasure. Her hunger grew from being alone. So she filled that void, and it's beautifully written. It tells a beautiful story. So thank you. It touched me very deeply.
Thank you. Well, being that you're a recording artist, if you ever want to put that to music, I would be honored.
Oh, thank you. I'll think about that. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. So, and I mean, so many people can relate to that throughout. And, unfortunately they can, so many children, even grownups can relate to that in so many different ways. So thank you for writing that beautiful poem.
Well, when we look at addictions, a lot of times people who have addictions end up being separated from society.
Yeah.
And really the one way through healing is for society to start to accept people and bring them in and connect with them rather than to push them to the edges. Because I think when people get pushed to the edges, we see the results of that with overdose and, a lot of things like right now with COVID, for example, with all the isolation, there's a lot more people who are succumbing to their addictions because of that lack of connection.
That's true. That's true. My brother, he passed away and he was addicted to alcohol. And it was his way to fill that void, to escape, for that one moment in time to, forget all of his problems and all of his issues. And that's what people use it as. They use it as a way to, to forget about what's going on. And that even if it's just for a short, 15, 20 minutes, if they can just, escape reality. And, and that poem is just so true, and that's why it reaches to me, is because my brother, he did pass away, and I knew of his addiction. I knew what he was doing, and we tried to help him as best as we could, and he just kept falling back down to that path, because that was his only escape that he felt that he had. So, and we see that happen every day. We do.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry for your loss. I never had to deal with a sibling who's gone through that. So, and I find, because I've kind of followed your journey a little bit by watching some of your videos.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate that you still have this positivity about you, despite having gone through a number of really difficult situations.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I just feel that, you change your mind, you can change your world, that sort of thing. So I wake up every day going, today is, I'm blessed. I'm blessed for even waking up. I'm blessed to be able to have another day to make someone smile. And because making others happy makes me happy. And I've always been that way. And it's just how I was raised. My mother and father were big givers, and and even in the small ways, people would come over to my house, and my father and mother would be cooking or something, and they would always welcome everybody with open arms into my home. And so I saw them over the years, how they treated others, and I thought, that's how I want to treat others, and that's how I want to be. So they were just a beautiful example of how to treat others, and just how to be a good person, and what it meant to be a good person. And their lives flourished. They they were blessed with, I've got 8 siblings, so, and 23 nieces and nephews, and now 7 great nieces and nephews. So I'm very blessed and favored. So
family reunions must be quite exciting for you.
Crowded. Oh goodness. But let's talk about you for a minute. So you were married, and you have a beautiful story that I would love for you to share with everybody about how you met your wife, and because I read your bio, and I was like, oh, that's just a sweet, precious story. So can you tell it for us?
Well, I was planning to go down for a vacation with my best friend at the time. And I was trying to convince him we're going to go to an all-inclusive resort. And he just kept dragging his feet, and I was getting really frustrated. So I said, Joe, either you book the trip or I'm going by myself. I said, I'm losing patience. So anyway, he finally agreed. So I went down it was called Club Maeva in Puerto Vallarta, and it was all-inclusive resort. And being somewhat a shallow male, which I seen my future beautiful wife in a bikini by the pool, and she was very attractive. And my friend Joe noticed her as well. So anyway, she had gone out snorkeling. So this is like the following day. So she'd gone out snorkeling, and she scratched the side of her leg on some coral while out snorkeling. And he seen her walking along the beach, and her leg was cut. And he says, that looks bad. He says, do you need medical assistance? And she looks at him and she says, oh, is it infected? And oh, no. She said, are you a doctor? And he goes, no, but I could be. So anyway, she thought, that's it. I'm getting out of here. So he came back and he told me the story. And later on, I seen her sitting by the pool, and I walked over to her, and I smiled and I said, hey, I understand that you need medical assistance. And she started laughing. And later on, when we talked about it, she said the difference was, she said, when Joe said it, it was very matter of fact. And she said, I just thought it was a pickup line. And she said, you were quite playful. And she said, at the time, I had blonde hair. I don't anymore, just gray. She said that my sparkly blue eyes and the sun shining through my blonde hair, she said she just couldn't resist. So yeah, so a long story short, in 3 days, I knew she was the one. She ruined my vacation because she left, because she was there staggered. So she had already been there for 3 days before I showed up. So we spent 3 days together, and in 3 days, I knew she was the one. She went back to British Columbia. I went back home to Ontario. I talked back and forth with her on the phone. And long story short, I moved out west to be with her, and we've now been together for 28 years.
So amazing. Oh my goodness, what a beautiful story. That is a beautiful story. And you've been together, how long did you say? 28 years?
8 years, yeah.
Wow. Wow. And you just knew. You just knew.
Yeah. When you know, you know. And
Yeah.
it was the best decision of my life by far.
Oh, that is so precious. Thank you for sharing that with us. I mean, that's just a beautiful love story. You should have you wrote a poem about that?
I've written several poems, not specifically about that, but obviously Mary's been an inspiration. In fact, in my book, there's a poem called Your Ocean, which I'll send you a copy of. I think you'll probably appreciate.
That would be wonderful. Yeah, I'd love to read it on the air too. So that'd be fantastic. That'd be fantastic. So let's talk about the hug. You've got a really nice story behind this poem, and I read it, and it's very open and honest, and I love how it just flows. So if you could read that for us, I'd appreciate it.
Okay. Yeah. So with the hug, I participate with a group called the Inspired Word Cafe, and we basically get together poets, and we recite and we televise some of the episodes. It's a really good creative outlet for people to come together. Interestingly enough, one of the reasons I'm getting you to read my favorite poem, which is Broken People, is my wife says that I'm really good at connecting when I'm writing poetry, but somehow there's a little bit of a disconnect. And I think that's probably just due to my shyness with doing, public speaking.
Yeah.
So as a result, participating in this Inspired Word Cafe was just to try to help me become a little bit more comfortable with doing the presenting side of things. Mm-hmm. So there was a young man that I met, and so I'm going to read the poem to you, and it'll kind of explain. He was at the Inspired Word Cafe, and he was presenting himself. Mm-hmm. So I called this piece The Hug. He is loving, caring, in love with the idea of hugging, yet part of him, the scared part, doesn't allow him to fully give himself. His hugs have the obligatory arms, the move forward, the joyful smile, the enthusiasm, yet they lack believing, the feeling of deserving. After all, there are scars, the names, the looks he's endured. His hugs are a safety check, a cry of please love me, a hint of I'm not sure I can trust you, trying desperately to find his place in a world, the one he has never felt was or is his world. So he tries to carve a place for himself, one hug at a time, until he can melt himself into its arms, until he believes that he has a space, a place that is his, a place unconcerned with the bending of genders or wrapped in the cellophane of churchy staring people. He is not some preconceived idea, so he will hug them, not fully, just a bit, until they start to hug him back. Until he really feels it, because he really, truly is, and always has been, a loving person, a caring person, one who doesn't understand why have so many chosen to hurt him. I, for one, will gladly, happily, lovingly reach out and embrace him. Because this wonderful, gentle, thoughtful young man desperately needs a hug.
It's sweet. It's very sweet. And it tells just a lovely story. And you reached out and gave him a hug, after the reading. Is that correct? Is that how it went?
Yeah. And then after I wrote it, I brought it back to him at a subsequent gathering. And, and he had a very heartfelt reaction to it. So it was, and I say, when you write something, you don't know whether or not anybody will respond to it. You kind of put yourself out there, and, I know yourself, whether you're you're performing or you're writing something, you really do have to expose yourself.
Yeah. You have to be very vulnerable and open. And it's just like, you're putting, everything out to everybody, your heart, your soul, your feelings, and you're having to say, open yourself up to everyone. And it's not always easy. It really isn't. And I mean, even I've been doing this for years, and I still get nervous. I still get nervous when I go on stage. I still get nervous when I, doing these shows, I still get nervous. But, I just kind of take a deep breath and go, okay, I'm helping somebody. I hope I'm blessing somebody today. And I'm sure that's, and as I read that poem, I got the same feeling that, you wrote this, and you gave him that hug because you felt, he needed that. He needed that, that touch and that comfort. So it was a beautiful poem, very beautiful and touching.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you're talking about when you're going up like yourself performing or doing something. And I kind of almost equate it to, if you look at a violin and you have a bow. So essentially you need to have a certain amount of tension, and then you have to have friction in order to create music. And, to kind of keep that in concert. So if you lose that tension that you have there, I don't think that your performance has the same impact. Yeah.
That's very true. That's very true. It doesn't. And, it's just, I feel that sometimes whenever I get on stage, it's, I want to connect with the audience. I want them to feel what I feel. And, and if you perform with all your heart, that's what my daddy always say, just perform with all your heart, feel like, pretend like you're singing to me. And so I always would just pretend like I'm singing to my daddy. And open up my heart and just let her rip, so to speak.
Well, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. So you have one more poem that I would like for you to read. And, there's a couple of things in this one. It's called Shattering Rose-Colored Glasses. And, there's a couple lines that really resonated with me, and I want to let you read it and then we'll talk about it. But it's, how can I say this? It hits some places that, and once my viewers read it, they'll understand. It hits some places that I went, oh, wow, I felt some things I hadn't felt before, especially with some of the lines. It really hit home on a couple aspects, and so I'm gonna let you read it and stop talking. So, because I'll talk till all day long.
So this particular piece I wrote for an art exhibition that was at the University of British Columbia, and an African Canadian fellow asked me to write it, and then I got feedback from him before I did the final product. And in doing that, I actually learned more about myself. I think one of the things that's challenging, especially in today's environment, because there's so much going on with Black Lives Matter and George Floyd, and it's a very difficult time. And then people's sensitivities are such that we're afraid to admit our own blind spots.
Yeah.
And and I think instead of us being offended when somebody brings something up to us about one of our blind spots, is to maybe simply sit back and kind of listen and say, hey, maybe I'm just not fully understanding that. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that you have a blind spot and you don't fully understand something.
Right.
So that was kind of the reason that I wrote this piece. So I'm going to read it to you. So it's called Shattering Rose-Colored Glasses. Uncomplicated me, I thought I was colorblind, free thinking and kind, with an evolved mind, loving and accepting of the ones I find. Yet my blindness is that of privilege. I'm just a visitor in the global village. From my narrow, thin mind, there is too much spillage. Although so many are forced from their homes, my life seems carefree. I am deaf to the groans. Brown women wearing veils that can't protect them from stones. I live in a whitewashed place, no freedom marches for men of a different race. Yet if I look back and trace, there are darker stories to face. We all took part in shameful things. Yes, we share in the disgrace. Highways of tears, rivers of shame. There's always someone else to blame. Residential schools, each child got a new name. They were forced to forget the place from where they came. Prisons filled with black and red-skinned men. They can't forget this now or that then. Promises and promises, but who, how, and when? Or will their children have to live it all over again? So yes, no longer colorblind. With the opening of my mind, I let color seep in. Starting somewhere different, today I begin, because I know it shouldn't be just the privileged who win.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, and then it hit home on a couple of places for me. One of my favorite parts of the poem is, I live in a whitewashed place, no freedom marches for men of a different race. Yet if I look back and trace, there are darker stories to face. We all took part in shameful things. Yes, we share in the disgrace. Let's talk about that for just a minute. Wow, what were you thinking when you wrote those lines?
Well, first of all, one of the things is that I always thought that that when you are communicating with somebody of a different race, is that I would say that, hey, I don't see color. I just look at the person for who they are. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was a perfectly acceptable thing. The reality is that it's the way that a person experiences the world is actually, to a great extent, through the color that we have.
Yeah.
And we experience our world because we look a certain way, and then people treat us in a certain way.
Right.
So when I'm discounting somebody's color, I'm discounting the fact that that's how they engage with the world.
Yeah.
So I don't think a person wants to not be seen from their color perspective, but I think that they want to be seen that that's part of who they are, that's part of how they experience the world, but that's not everything.
Yeah.
But we can't divorce one from the other. And I never really looked at it that way until this young fellow kind of expressed that, hey, I think you're kind of missing the point here somewhat. Mm-hmm. And and I'd love to say that I have no prejudice, but there's things that I say or do all the time that people could have issue with until somebody brings it to my attention, and I don't have an understanding of it. But now I don't get offended. I'll just say, oh, well, that's interesting. Tell me more about it. I want to understand that perspective.
Right.
Yeah, we just had I live in Kelowna, British Columbia, which is in the Okanagan Valley. Yeah. And there's another city that's not far from us, and it's in Vernon. And just in the last few days, the mayor of Vernon is all upset about there being diversity training. Mm-hmm. And for me, I thought, wow, that's really strange. But he thinks that he already treats people with respect. So why do I need to have any kind of diversity training?
I see.
But the long and the short of it is all of us don't know what we don't know.
Right.
And and I'm all for whatever training that I can get, even if I look at even between men and women, like the way that I would have communicated with women back even 20 years ago. Mm-hmm. I've learned a lot more than what I knew back then in terms of how I communicate now.
Right. And that's beautifully said. We all just, what we don't understand, we need to educate ourselves, or we just need to be more open to learn about. And so we can be more understanding. So, thank you for answering that beautifully said. So, but, I just want to say thank you, Richard. It's been a joy to spend some time with you and to hear your amazing writings. Where can we find you at? Where can the viewers see some more of your amazing poetry?
Yeah, if you just do a Google Richard Lamoureux poetry, that'll actually access you to Poetry Soup. I think I've probably got close to 2,000 pieces on there.
Wow.
I've been writing there, I guess, since probably about 2012. I didn't realize I had so much to say. But
I think we all do.
yeah, I enjoy that community as well because there's really good feedback. The other spot is you could go to my website, www.wisedemmypoet.com. I'll do gratuitous self-advertising. This is my book. I don't know if it'll come out straight, but yeah.
Yes. And I'll put the link. I'll put the links in the description so the viewers can see as well. But thank you so much for taking time out of your world and being a part of ours. I look forward to reading more of your poetry, and it has just been an honor just to sit and talk with you for a few minutes today and hear what's going on in your world and just listen to your amazing poetry. So thank you, Richard. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for having me, Tammy. As I say, you've got a really nice, warm and welcoming way about you. And I think it's great that you're promoting poets and musicians and giving them a format or a platform to kind of express themselves. So good on you. And I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. You do as well. Thank you so much, Richard, for taking some time today and spending it with us. I loved hearing your stories behind your poems and your story of how you met your wife. Congratulations, 28 years. Wow. So now I'm going to read Richard Lamoureux's poem, Broken People. And you can find this poem on poetrysoup.com. Broken People. I wish to be with broken people. The get in your face, challenge me people. The sometimes hidden, sitting in a dark corner kind of people. The don't you love me? I wish you seen me sort of people. People just being real people. Not having to have it all together people. Them doing their best to figure it out people. Dancing and singing without the smooth moves, people. I don't care about the color of their skin or what others think of as their sin. They don't need to be perfect to win. Seeing and listening is where I'll begin. Beyond appearance of fat or thin, I only know what I know. I've never been where they've been. We'll start with our broken smiles. It's the best that we got. It might seem like so little. Still, I think it's a lot. Through life struggles we've all fought, lessons needed learning, experienced, not taught. Real is real. It couldn't be bought. So forget the fake people, the all about their perfect hair and clothes people, the I live in the right neighborhood and drive the right car people. It's all about me, top of the hill people. They only hang out with the supremely cool people. Those too important to talk to me people. Thinking they're the best of the best kind of people. When all along, they're merely sheeple. Bah, bah, bang. Thinking they are strong instead of feeble. I love the characters, people who are unique. I look under exteriors to gain a peek. Strengths of lions disguised in meek, unconcerned with fab or being chic, worth listening to, if allowed to speak. The stories they will tell will make your eyes leak. For in the end, we all are broken, stumbling and choking, disguising hurt with our joking. Victims of others and their poking. So look closely, maybe you'll see. Eyes that aren't blank, hearts that aren't empty, who we think of as complicated in the end might not be. They might push when others come close, yet they are affectionate times 3, each just a bit afraid and broken. All while wishing and wanting to be a part of something, if only we choose to see. Those on the fringes are a part of the we, All we have to do is let them be. Wow. What a poem. Oh, goodness. That's powerful. That's powerful words there. I'm a little bit touched. Goodness. So thank you guys for taking time today and spending it with me. And I appreciate your love and support. If you like what you're seeing, please hit that little red subscribe button in the right-hand side of the corner and stay tuned each and every week. As always, smile, stay positive, stay true, and be you, and stay safe. Good night, everyone.